you know, the, oh, I guess it is turned on.
Short meeting, right? Okay. Good.
Good evening and welcome to the Sioux Falls City Council meeting. The meeting will start in 60 seconds. Okay. But I'm in big trouble.
Well, a hearty good evening to everybody and welcome. Just a tremendous week for our city in so many ways, and a tremendous week for our government, and just glad everybody's here. This is Tuesday, April 16th, and we'll start our city council meeting by introducing you to your city council.
Council members Erpenbach?
Here.
Jamison?
Here.
Karski?
Here.
Rolfing?
Here.
Staggers?
Present.
Aguilar? Here. Anderson?
Here.
Entenmann?
Thank you very much. As we do with every city council meeting, we start our meeting with an invocation. And we're incredibly pleased to have Pastor Blaze Johnson here of Celebrate Church, one of the largest groups in our community. And thanks for celebrating with us tonight, Pastor. Appreciate it. If I could, I'd ask you all to stand. We'll have a wonderful prayer. And then if you'd remain standing for our Pledge of Allegiance. Pastor?
Thank you, Mayor. Let us pray. Father, Lord, thank you for what you're doing in the community of Sioux Falls. It is being confirmed quite often that your work is being done. I ask you to continue to use Sioux Falls to do your work. Thank you for using the members of the council and members of the community to shape what you would have us be. Guide the members of the council as they discuss issues that will be pivotal to your work in the community. Guide their hearts and their minds as they hear the opinions of others. Please allow them to consider your will in the decisions they make. Thank you for your protection in the city of Sioux Falls. Thank you for making this a safe community to raise a family in. Thank you for being a sovereign God who loves us. And thank you for using all of Sioux Falls to accomplish your will. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Where's he going?
Well, here they are. Thank you. Thanks so much. Thank you. Well, hearty good evening to everybody and welcome. Thanks for joining us tonight. I've got a number of proclamations to share with the people of our town. And Darren, if you could come forward, please. We're going to start with you. Darren, would you mind introducing your team? And what an incredible week to acknowledge this group. I mean, Sioux Falls and Minnehaha County, Lincoln County, South Dakota. Pay attention to this one. These folks were unbelievable this week. Darren, would you mind introducing your team?
Thanks, Mayor. With me today is Luke Sentz. Luke is the newest 911 operator we have at the agency. He's been working independently for 2 weeks now. We have Lenora Giles. Lenora is actually our 2012 Communications Operator of the Year. And then we have our business manager, Anna Raker.
Thank you. Here's a proclamation. Whereas emergencies can occur at any time that require police, fire, or emergency medical services. Whereas when an emergency occurs, the prompt response of police officers, firefighters, and paramedics is critical to the protection of life and the preservation of property. Whereas the safety of our police officers and firefighters is dependent upon the quality and accuracy of information obtained from citizens who telephone Metro Communications. Whereas public safety telecommunicators are the first and most critical contact our citizens have with emergency services. Whereas public safety telecommunicators are a single vital link for our police officers and firefighters by monitoring their activities by radio, providing them information, and ensuring their safety. Whereas public safety telecommunicators of the Metro Communications Agency have contributed substantially to the apprehension of criminals, suppression of fires, and treatment of patients. Whereas each dispatcher has exhibited compassion, understanding, and professionalism during the performance of their job in the past year. Now, therefore, I, Mike Huther, Mayor of the City of Sioux Falls, do hereby proclaim the week of April 14th through April 20th, absolutely perfect, as National Public Safety Telecommunications Week in Sioux Falls in honor of the men and women whose diligence and professionalism keep our city and citizens safe. I mean, let's give these folks a round of applause. Thank you. Darren, before you leave, a normal call volume day would be what, and what did you just deal with the last week? Would you mind just informing the people?
Absolutely. Mayor, a normal day for us would be 600 to 700 calls. Over the 9th through the 11th, on the 9th, we actually had 2,300, 2,400 calls. So we've seen about triple the volume. we were able to react to that. Obviously, we've been preparing for large events like this with our partners for many years. So we don't enjoy these things, but we are ready to handle these and make sure that the people get the help that they need.
Thank you. Good job. Thanks again, Jared.
Thanks a lot.
Bet. I'm going to change this around just a little bit. Sarah, would you mind coming forward? All these are tying in so nicely this week. Sarah, would you mind introducing yourself along with the folks that are here? And then you'll see why this ties in so nicely. Here you go, Sarah.
I am Sarah Carruthers, and I work with the Helpline Center, and I'm here tonight with representatives of the service and volunteering community. So I'm just going to pass that down and let them each introduce themselves.
I'm Linda Jensen. I'm with Lutheran Social Services.
Jen Abels, the salsa coordinator through the Helpline Center.
Maureen Ohm with Downtown Sioux Falls.
Sarah Schaefer-Henry, volunteer director with Girl Scouts Dakota Horizons.
Thanks, Sarah. Well, there's a little pattern going here, and I think you'll understand why after I read this. Whereas every community member can affect positive change with any volunteer action, no matter how big or small. And in South Dakota, 233,090 people volunteer annually. Whereas volunteers can connect with local community service opportunities through hundreds of community service organizations like volunteer centers. Whereas millions of volunteers working in their communities utilize their time and talent daily to make a real difference in the lives of children, adults, and the elderly. Whereas during this week, all over the nation, service projects will be performed and volunteers recognized for their commitment to service. Whereas the giving of oneself and service to another empowers the giver and the recipient. Whereas experience teaches us that government by itself cannot solve all of the nation's social problems. Whereas our country's volunteer force, which is over 62.4 million, is a great treasure. Whereas volunteers are vital to our future as a caring and productive nation. Now, therefore, I, Mike Huther, Mayor of the City of Sioux Falls, do hereby proclaim April 21 through April 27 as National Volunteer Week in Sioux Falls. And I urge all citizens to volunteer. Congratulations, Sarah. There is one line here that I want to just reach out to the people of Sioux Falls. It says, whereas experience teaches us that government by itself cannot solve all of our nation's social problems. Well, the city government of Sioux Falls cannot solve all of the challenges and the problems that we face right now. There are elderly folks out there. There are disabled folks out there. There are folks with limited resources that need your help, Sioux Falls. They do. And we're going to be reaching out to you more and more over the days to come. Call 211. Call a service organization such as the Helpline Center. Let them know that you're willing to volunteer to help out people in need. Sarah, team, thanks so much for being here today. Thank you. You're welcome. Graham, is Graham here? Graham with Volunteers of America? Great. Well, welcome. I'm sorry. You're not Graham. No way. I'm sorry. Addie. Addie, please. Nice to see you, Addie. Thank you. Addie Graham Kramer. Yes, very good. Addie's here. Again, this is going to tie in nicely, and you'll see why. Whereas Volunteers of America Dakotas is celebrating 93 years of service this year in the Sioux Falls community. Whereas Volunteers of America started in 1920 providing prison ministries, and in 1923 began providing child care centers to serve families. Whereas Volunteers of America Dakotas is recognized as one of the longest running nonprofit child care agencies in the nation. Whereas the 11th annual Partners Breakfast will be held on May 2nd, 2013, to thank all of its partners to share its successes and goals and to continue fulfilling the human service needs in the Dakotas by helping people help themselves. Whereas in 2013, Volunteers of America Dakotas has 6 service areas, children, youth and families, mental health, employment, training and disabilities, housing and homeless, community enhancement, and substance abuse and prevention. They have 457 professionally trained employees and over 1,100 volunteers. Whereas in fiscal year 2012, Volunteers of America Dakotas served over 18,500 children, youth, adults, and families from throughout the Dakotas who are striving to fulfill their hopes and dreams for a better and brighter future. In addition, through our prevention and community enhancement programs, we engage our community members over 57,000 times in 2012. Whereas Volunteers of America Dakota's mission as a nonprofit, spiritually based organization is to reach out to empower people of all ages to become healthier, self-sufficient, productive members of their communities. Now, therefore, I, Mike Huther, Mayor of the City of Sioux Falls, do hereby proclaim May 2nd as Volunteers of America Dakota's Day in Sioux Falls. Addie, thanks for all you do. You're impacting so many people, and we do appreciate it. Folks, let's give her a round of applause. Mary, welcome. Folks, this is Mary Johns. This is the director of all of the libraries in our town and around this area. She moved here about, what, year and a half ago? Year and a half ago, and we're very blessed to have her. So turn to the camera, Mary, so everybody can see you. Okay. Here's the proclamation. Whereas libraries are the heart of their communities, campuses, and schools. Whereas librarians work to meet the changing needs of their communities, including providing resources for everyone and bringing services outside of library walls. Whereas librarians encourage learning and discovery through early literacy activities, family reading, teen advisory groups, and summer reading programs. Whereas libraries and librarians bring together community members to enrich and shape the community and support local issues such as Live Well Sioux Falls. Whereas librarians are trained, tech-savvy professionals, providing technology training and access to downloadable content such as e-books and digital magazines. Whereas libraries offer programs to meet community needs, providing residents with resume writing classes, 24/7 homework help, financial planning services for teens applying for student loans, and older adults planning their retirement. Whereas libraries continuously grow and evolve in how they provide for the needs of every member of their communities. Whereas libraries, librarians, library workers, and supporters across America are celebrating National Library Week. Now, therefore, I, Mike Huther, Mayor of the City of Sioux Falls, do hereby proclaim April 14th through the 20th as National Library Week in Sioux Falls and encourage all residents to visit any of our Siouxland libraries this week to take advantage of the wonderful library resources available at your library. Communities matter at your library. Mary, thank you so much. Before we give you a round of applause, would you mind telling the people of this city, where are all the libraries in terms of surrounding towns?
He's going to put me to the test. I usually do this ABC. We have the main library here in Sioux Falls and 3 branches, Ronning, Oakview, and Cayley. And then there are 8 libraries out in the county because in 1995, Sioux Falls Public Library and Minnehaha County Library System joined forces and merged to become Siouxland Libraries, which from a point of view of an outsider was a great opportunity. So we have branches in Hartford and Brandon, Humboldt, Garrettson, Colton, Crooks. I did Brandon. I should have done this the other way. Brandon and Hartford are joint use facilities with high schools. And then Crooks and Garrettson and Colton and Baltic and Valley Springs. And if that's 8, I'm glad. If it's not, I'm really sorry.
Thank you, Mary. Nice job.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, thank you, everybody. Council, thank you so much for your patience. We'll now move on to tonight's consent agenda. Any changes?
Move approval, Aguilar.
Second, Anderson.
Councilor Aguilar has made a motion to approve our consent agenda, seconded by Councilor Anderson Jr. Any comments A roll call vote, please.
Council members Erpenbach?
Yes.
Jamison?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Staggers?
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes. That is passed 7-0. Now moving on to our regular agenda. Council, any changes?
Move to approve Erpenbach.
Second, Rolfing.
Councilor Erpenbach's made a motion to approve our agenda for tonight, seconded by Councilor Rolfing. If there is no discussion, a roll call vote.
Council members Erpenbach?
Yes.
Jamison?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Staggers?
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes. That is passed 7-0. Again, welcome to the meeting tonight. Folks, it is an opportunity for you to engage the council. If anybody's interested, come on forward, just introduce yourself to the people of our town and engage us. Anybody? Welcome, sir.
Thank you. My name is Ron Sabi. I live on 722 North Wayland. The reason why I'm here is that I'm a little disappointed in the way the city has decided to ban smoking in the parks. And I see Teresa's here. We spend a lot of time talking about snow gates. Personally, I think snow gates is something for the city to make a decision and do something in regards to that and vote on it. I think the public is micromanaging. Now we have an agency or a bureaucrat making a decision about banning on smoking in the parks without you, who we elect to make a decision. I really don't think we need, as a public, to vote on that. But I do think that's something that should have been brought to this body here to vote on. Personally, I really don't care about smoking in the parks, one way or the other. I just think this is just an underhanded way to ban smoking in the parks. And I really don't think this is the way government should be doing this. So I urge, if there's any way to bring this to a vote to this body, I think that should be done. I'd like to end on a positive note here. Mayor, I appreciate your leadership during this past week. You have done an extremely good job getting out there, being positive about this whole thing. I also feel very good about the citizens of Sioux Falls. We were talking about people helping each other, the utility companies. What we are going through is unbelievable. I was born and raised here in Sioux Falls. I've never seen anything like this. Sometimes it takes a disaster like this to make us appreciate the people that are around us, and I really appreciate the people coming in from out of Sioux Falls to help us, and it's just beyond words as to how much I appreciate it as a citizen, and I'm sure the rest of Sioux Falls appreciated it too, so thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. Anybody else want to engage the council? Well, very welcome.
I had a overhead.
Okay.
Good evening. Teresa Staley. And first of all, I want us to say I agree with the man who was just up here that I think this week was a very good week for our city. And I've been talking with people, and they appreciate that the city has shown a great attitude of compassion and trying to help reach out to the people. We loved that you gave us consideration on cleaning up the sidewalks, moving cars when you're doing the plowing, and I know putting those trees in the boulevard has been very, very helpful for people. And this is, to me, I think this is what government is about. I happened to catch inside Kello, some of you may have seen that Sunday night, and our fire chief, Jim Sedaris, was being asked by Brady. He said, how are we ever going to be able to get past this with the loss of trees? And Jim said, hey, our city is about people. It's not about things. It's about the people who live here. And we have fabulous people here. And we have people who are rich, and we have people who are poor, but we're all worthwhile. We all deserve respect. And they just came by my yard this afternoon and picked the branches up, and so bravo for the wonderful job. I'm here tonight because I wanted to say a positive thing, but I was troubled by this flyer that came out with the water bill today. And if we could you put that down to the front of it a little bit for me? There has been a certain sense in our community that we are going to crack down on our neighbors. And we were just hearing tonight about this effort we have to love one another, helping our neighbors out. I live in a neighborhood, we have lots of different ideas about what we want to do with our property. I have never called in a violation on a neighbor, and I wouldn't do it. If there is something they're doing that is going to hurt me, I would go and talk with them about it. I have done neighborhood watch. I have worked to create a good relationship with my neighbors. I do not think this is a positive thing to be putting out this kind of information that says we're cracking down. Here are the numbers. Put this on your refrigerator, and if you see your neighbors doing anything out of line, call them in. This is not creating a friendly community. And then I was also troubled, would you move that up, please, by the car. Now, when I first looked at this, and if you'll look at it, it looks like an older car parked in a driveway. I see there's license plates on there. And I guess there is, if you look very closely, you might see that there is a wheel missing on the back. But I know a lot of people cannot afford anything better than that kind of a vehicle. And by putting that at the bottom of this flyer, it's almost like you're saying, we don't want this kind of car in our community. We're all about upper class, perfect, new, and shiny. And that is not what we want Sioux Falls to be about here. So in the future, when we put that mailing out, I'd say, you know, if you want to have a car that's dismantled sitting in someone's yard, you know, that's really an example of what would be a violation. This, to me, is not. So I just wanted to say I have a right to express this, and I think this is going, as we go down this way, it's going the wrong way for our city. So I'm hoping that this beautiful attitude of love and caring is going to be flowing in to every part of our city entity, all the governmental agencies as we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who wanted to engage the council tonight? Well, again, thank you for being here tonight. We certainly appreciate it. We'll now move on to item 18.
Item 18 is a special one-day malt beverage and special one-day wine licenses for Almost Home Canine Rescue to be operated at the 8th and Railroad parking lot, 401 East 8th Street for the 605 Summer Classic to be held on June 21st to the 22nd, 2013. Item 19 is a special one-day liquor license for South Dakota National Guard Enlisted Association to be operated at the Farmers Market at Falls Park, 309 East Falls Park Drive for the 2013 Enlisted Association of the National Guard of the United States 42nd Annual Conference Welcome Event on August 18th, 2013. Item 20 is a special one-day liquor license for South Dakota National Guard Enlisted Association to be operated at J&L Harley-Davidson, 2601 West 60th Street North for the 2013 Enlisted Association of the National Guard of the United States 42nd Annual Conference Awards and Recognition Banquet on August 21st, 2013. Item 21 is a special one-day wine licenses for Downtown Sioux Falls Incorporated to be operated at the following locations: 8th and Railroad Center Lobby, 401 East 8th Street, Amanda's Imagery, Julie Prairie Photography, 311 South Phillips Avenue, number 201, Artesian House, 229 South Phillips Avenue, Bead Company, 319 South Phillips Avenue, Bookshop, 223 South Phillips Avenue, CH Patisserie, 309 South Phillips Avenue, Chelsea's Boutique, 321 South Phillips Avenue, Cookie Jar, 230 South Phillips Avenue, Exposure Sioux Falls, 333 South Phillips Avenue, Great Outdoor Store, 201 East 10th Street, Lillian Shop, 311 South Phillips Avenue, number 101, NV Salon Studio, 106 West 11th Street, Rayfield's Art and Framing, 210 South Phillips Avenue, Rug and Relic, 401 East 8th Street, number 112, 114, Say Anything Jewelry, 524 North Main Avenue, number 104, Sticks and Steel, 401 East 8th Street, number 118, Young and Richards, 236 South Main Avenue, Zanbros, 209 South Phillips Avenue for first Friday on May 3rd, 2013. Item 22, special one-day malt beverage and special one-day wine licenses for Downtown Sioux Falls Incorporated to be operated at 8th and Railroad Parking Lot, 401 East 8th Street for downtown block parties on the East Bank on June 7th, July 5th, and August 2nd, 2013. Item 23, special one-day malt beverage and special one-day wine licenses for Downtown Sioux Falls Incorporated to be operated on Phillips Avenue from 9th to 14th Streets, Main Avenue from 10th to 13th Streets, 13th Street from Main to 1st Avenue, 12th Street from Main to Phillips Avenue, 11th Street from Dakota to Mall Avenues, 10th Street from Main to Mall Avenues, parking ramp by Main and 12th, surface lot behind the diner, and plaza by 12th and Phillips for hot summer nights on July 17th, 2013. Item 24, special one-day malt beverage and special one-day wine licenses for Hy-Vee Incorporated. All occasions by Hy-Vee to be operated at the Point is to Serve Church, 506 North Kiwanis Avenue for weddings on May 4th and September 14th, 2013. Item 25, special one-day liquor licenses for Hy-Vee Incorporated. All occasions by Hy-Vee to be operated at the Point is to Serve Church, 506 North Kiwanis Avenue for weddings on May 25th and September 21st, 2013.
Thank you very much. Welcome, Jamie.
Good evening. Jamie Palmer with licensing. Item 18 is an annual event which started in 2010, so this will be its fourth year. 19 and 20 are tied together in that it's a national convention that's coming here to Sioux Falls. And however, I'm going to ask that item 20 be withdrawn due to an incorrect date that was submitted by the applicant. Items 21 through 23 are all requests from downtown Sioux Falls for special events in the downtown area. And of course, items 24 and 25 are weddings. So I'll entertain any questions.
Thank you, Jamie. Councilor?
Mr. Mayor, I would move to withdraw item 20.
Second.
Thank you. There's been a motion to withdraw item number 20 as requested by Jamie, and it was seconded by Councilor Rolfing. If there is no discussion, a roll call vote, please.
Council members Erpenbach?
Yes.
Jamison?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Staggers?
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
That is passed 7-0. Council, any other motions?
Move approval of the other items.
Thank you, Councilor. Second?
Second, Aguilar.
Thank you. Councilor Rolfing's made a motion to approve all the items other than 20, seconded by Councilor Aguilar. A roll call vote, please.
Council members Erpenbach?
Yes.
Jamison?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Staggers?
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
That is passed 7-0. Item 26.
Item 26 is a second reading. An ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending Chapters 50 and 52 of the Code of Ordinances of the city regarding regulation of non-essential uses of water.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Trent Lubers with the Office of Public Works. I also have Greg Anderson, the Water Superintendent, with me. It seems odd after the week that we've had this past week and the fact that 3 hours ago I was standing ankle deep in a mud hole piling trees up, but we're here to talk about our water management plan for the summer. Sooner than later, it's going to be lawn watering season, and we have to manage those resources going forward. So last week we shared with you our water management plan, and I do have a PowerPoint presentation if you want to see particular slides, but basically what this ordinance does is it recognizes the addition of our significant flow source, and that is Lewis and Clark water. It simplifies the previous plan that we had by going from a 4-stage plan or a 4-step plan down to a 3-step plan. It also requires 2 triggers for us to go from one stage to the other. It requires the flow in the river, which is what we used before, but it also takes into consideration the daily demand. So if we don't have significant flow in the river, but our customers are managing their water usage appropriately, we don't need to move from stage to stage. And we believe that this plan that we're putting forward manages our water resources wisely. So with your support, what it'll allow us to do is move between the stages by ordinance. It codifies all the stages of the water plan, and the previous ordinances did not. It was just done by resolution each time. So I'm here to answer any questions.
Trent, thank you. Folks, this is a second reading. If there's anybody who wanted to speak to this item in the audience, please feel free to come forward. Welcome.
My name is Ron Savi. I live at 722 North Wayland, and I also have 3 properties. I'm a property owner. I hope I'm speaking in turn here because based on what was said last week, there's two issues that I have. Number one, there has to be a better way of doing the single once-a-week watering. The reason why I'm saying that is because for me as a property owner, it's very cumbersome for me to take care of the properties as far as watering is concerned. It happens that one of my properties falls on a weekend, so every weekend I have to water if I want to water. And yes, I did water on a different day because of that. And that's the point I'm making. What happened to the honor system? Have we ever tried the honor system? Wouldn't that work? I think the citizens of Sioux Falls, I have no problem with the even odd for, I think it's stage 1. For the stage 3, I believe, where we go to the single watering a week, I really think there should be a better system where people can, on the honor system, be able to do that. That's just my opinion. Secondly, no water on the concrete, no water on the sidewalks. That does not make sense to me, and I'll tell you the reason why. Number one, the slope of the land. If it slopes towards the sidewalk, you're going to get runoff. When it's extremely dry and you're going once a week, it takes a while for that moisture to sink in, and you're going to get water running off onto the sidewalk. On a rainy day, a windy day, if it's blowing, and that's when I do not water, it's important to note something. The biggest expense for us property owners is water. I do not believe property owners really want to go out and just water all the time, but we would like to have a decent looking apartment building because tenants expect that. But we want to do it in a way that is, conserving of the water. So the point I'm making is it costs money to water. I'm not going to go out and water just to be spending money. So when it's a windy day, you're going to have water spraying all over if it's the day you're supposed to water. It doesn't make sense. I also have a sprinkler system. And it's one of those systems that kind of goes out in around 180 degrees. The farthest out part goes on the sidewalk. What do you do about that? That's the way it's designed, to be able to catch everything. Now, if I have a sprinkler head that is spraying out in the street, that's one thing. But I really think having an ordinance that you really can enforce, and if you do enforce, you're actually making every citizen in Sioux Falls guilty of a crime. Water does flow onto the sidewalk. So I really urge some kind of consideration for that. And it has been mentioned to me that, these laws or rules and ordinances aren't always enforced. I have gotten a warning for watering on a day off because my sprinkler system is set up for every Tuesday. Well, every other week it's going to be on an odd day or an even day, and I ended up getting a warning. So it does come down to me as a property owner that I do violate the law. So if I try to not get on the sidewalk, I'm going to end up getting a warning. I got a warning after shoveling the snow. The people cleared out the alley, and I'm not talking about 48 hours later. I'm talking about 8 hours after I'm done shoveling. I did not know that there was a windrow of snow on the sidewalk. The city called me. I had to go over there and shovel that. I don't want to give you the impression that I don't care, but we got to be understanding on how to make some ordinances that make sense. Water on the sidewalk is going to happen, and people are going to be breaking the ordinance. So anyway, I really want to encourage you to give some consideration about the water on the sidewalks.
Thanks, Ron.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Trent, would you mind explaining to Ron as well as the rest of the people of the city how under special circumstances or certain circumstances you can get an exception to like the day, as well as what is intended with the sidewalk and the driveway. Would you mind explaining that common sense
Sure.
that Ron's talking about?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Typically, when we're talking about water on the sidewalk and the concrete, it's for the example that he did use, and that was that when someone has a sprinkler head that's shooting erroneously out onto the street or the sidewalk, we've all seen it where there's water running into the curb and gutter system, and that water's not doing any good. Not only is it not good for the property owner because they're spending money and they're not getting any benefit out of it, but it also is a waste of a finite resource that we have. And I will speak to the once-a-week system. Is we do have a once-a-week system because when we get to that once-a-week system, we have to manage that resource and make sure that we have water available. And one way to do that is for us to divide up by street address, the last number of your address, giving you a particular day through a 7-day week. If we don't do that, and if we would go to an honor system, what if everybody picked Monday? We can't pump all the water that everybody would want on a Monday. More likely it would be a Saturday or a Sunday on the weekend. And so we try to manage that resource. We try to manage what we can bring into the plant and put out of the facility into the distribution system.
In terms of the exception that you can get, we had a person here last year, I remember she was an elderly woman who couldn't be available on a certain day, and how you explained how she could get an exception if necessary under certain circumstances.
I believe there were some times last year where we offered some exceptions where individuals couldn't water on a particular day. And we can certainly take a look at that, developing a system where we can account for that to make sure that code enforcement officers, our water professionals that are out there would have some notice that that's not a violation because they were given a different day. But again, I would caution that if we did that, if everybody asked for Saturday, that would be a difficult thing for us to achieve. So it would have to be monitored and controlled in some way.
Thanks, Trent. Anyone else in the audience want to speak to this particular item before I have the council engage us? Well, thank you very much. And again, Ron, thanks for staying here tonight. We appreciate it. The council? Yes, Councilor Staggers.
Yes, Trent, can I ask you a question? Right now, when we go from stage 1 to stage 2, we're going when we get down to 42 million gallons per day, we're instituting 1 day a week watering. What is it presently right now when we go to stage 1 to stage 2?
From us to go to stage 1 to stage 2, if you remember last year, we were watching the river flow at the Del Rapids flow gauge. When the river flow dropped below 50 cubic feet per second, that's when we went from odd even to once per week. And now we're looking at that flow at the Cliff Avenue gauge, but we're also looking at the demand on the system. Because we've added that additional source, Lewis and Clark is 17 million gallons a day that we didn't have before with the old plant. So we're able to bring that into the system. So that backstops some of that demand. So though we are still seeing some decline in river flow and we have less ability to harvest out of the Big Sioux River, we do have the ability to backfeed that with the Lewis and Clark system.
So once again, I'm just trying to recall, we don't have any right now limit on the 42 million gallons in our current stages now. We're just focused exclusively on river flow. Is that fair to say?
Our current plan that we had was implemented, I believe, in 2003 and then updated in 2005 was strictly based on the river flow at the Del Rapids gauge.
Okay. If I could just say one other thing. 42 million per day doesn't seem to be that much. To institute 1 day of watering per week.
42 million gallons per day. Last year, when we had an extremely dry and hot year and people were using water, our highest day of flow on that odd even schedule was 45 million gallons a day. At that time, we had about 8 million gallons more of demand than we do now. Because before Lewis and Clark system was up and running, North Lincoln County is a new customer for Lewis and Clark. We were actually supplying that system water. So that's 8 million gallons of demand that's not on our system. So last year when it was extremely dry and there was a lot of demand and we were feeding all those extra systems, we never got above 45. And so we've lost that 8 million gallons a day of that peak demand. And so now you're looking at us probably not going over 40 million gallons for some time to come.
So why can't we move it up from 42 million to 48 million? We were able to do it last year, and instead of, going through here and instituting 1 day a week watering.
We believe that this is a plan that wisely manages our resources. And when we start getting down to a low flow in the Big Sioux River, we have to start managing the aquifer for a long-term play if there's an extended period of drought. And so as that river resource declines, that river resource is there to recharge the aquifer. We're drawing out of the aquifer, we're drawing less out of the river. So 42 is really that number there that allows us to meet that demand and also manage that resource wisely.
But if I could just say, we've never had 42 before for 1 day watering.
But last year, when we were at 50, we did go, when we had 45 million gallons of demand, we did go to that once a week watering restriction.
Councilor Bach?
I'm not so concerned about the numbers as I am this idea that suddenly, because we have the access to the Lewis and Clark, that we built a pipeline to the Missouri River, that suddenly the earth is making more water for Sioux Falls, South Dakota. I think Trent said it really well. Water is a finite resource. There is only so much of it on the planet, and we only get to use so much of it. So I think it's really important for us to understand that, yeah, this system is really simple. It is green, yellow, red, 1, 2, 3. It's as simple as that. That it's really important, though, for us to conserve water, no matter what. And I remember when the council several years ago passed that ordinance that bans watering on concrete and on hard surfaces. It was a huge deal to that council because it was a conservation issue. We were at a point where we didn't have Lewis and Clark. We didn't have the resources that we have now, and there were big concerns about conserving water. And now we're acting like, because of Lewis and Clark, we've got all the water we need. We can just pour it in the street. Let's conserve. Let's pass this particular ordinance. This is a really great way to manage the water, that finite resource, and I appreciate the work staff has done on this.
Councilor Jamieson.
Trent, walk me through this. I had last year when I was trying to bring my dormant grass, I guess, I thought it was dead, but it was dormant, grass back to life. I had one sprinkler head that was stuck and was spraying out into the street, and you see it early in the morning, you're out there looking around, you go, But what is the process? What if, and how do you manage that? If you drove by, or code enforcement, somebody drove by and saw that, what would be the steps? What would be the...
It would be very similar to the code enforcement process that's there now. You'd get a notice, you'd get a reminder that you have an ordinance or a code violation. We would go to the next step would be a notice of violation, and you'd get a period of time to correct. And then after that, we would go to that three-stage process that's in place for implementing a fine. So there would be two opportunities to make an adjustment before there would be any tickets written.
Councilor Jamieson, thanks for asking that question. I appreciate it. Council, very good. Good dialogue. If there is no discussion,
I'm going to move approval.
Thank you. Councilor Rolfing, thank you. And Councilor Sikarsky has seconded that. Yes, Councilor Staggers?
Yes. I guess I'm not very satisfied with this proposed stage 3 in watering. I'm not quite sure it's better than what we already have. But it's important to keep in mind that the orientation of the water plant has changed rather dramatically over the years. Many years ago, the philosophy of the water plant was to try to produce as much water for the consumer as possible. That was the name of the game, the consumer. And then over the years, it changed to, well, we have to have controls because we have to have conservation. And so that was for a number of years. We focused on conservation, conservation, conservation. Now we can see that the orientation has changed to really focusing on what it has been for a very long time. And that's to make it easier to manage the water plant, to make it easier for those people working in the water plant to produce the water. So they don't really have ups and downs according to consumer demand. No, what they're trying to do is to control consumer demand, to level it out, to make it much easier for them to operate the water plant. And I can understand where they're coming from, but their orientation is not towards the citizenry. It's towards operating that water plant to make it easier for them. And then, of course, the water on the sidewalks. I remember when that ordinance was passed, I thought at the time, you got to be kidding me. we're passing this ordinance saying it's illegal to put water on the sidewalk. Now, at the time when it was passed, nobody said anything about, well, we're just trying to prevent those water systems that have the heads going back and forth across the sidewalk. That's what we're trying to prevent. Well, no, that wasn't what we were trying to prevent. We were trying to prevent no water on the sidewalk. If we had wanted to prevent what they're now saying we wanted to prevent, we'd have had that in the ordinance, but it's not in the ordinance at all. So there's a number of things wrong with this present ordinance that is going to cause me to vote against it. Thank you.
A roll call vote, please.
Councilmembers Erpenbach?
Yes.
Jamison?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Staggers?
No.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
That is passed 6-1. Item 27.
Item 27 is a first reading to set a date of hearing and second reading for Tuesday, May 7th, 2013 at 7 o'clock p.m. An ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the Code of Ordinances of the city by amending Chapter 39, Personnel, Regulations and Benefits, Retirement and Pensions.
Good evening, City Council and Mayor. Bill O'Toole, Director of Human Resources. Item 27 seeks to amend Chapter 39 of the Retirement and Personnel Regulations, specifically that portion of the ordinance dealing with our city's pension plan. And as you just heard, to set a date, a hearing for May 8th. Specifically, the pension ordinances are being amended in a manner consistent with the Mayor and Council's resolution that was adopted on July 10th of 2012, which was resolution number 5212. And that resolution laid out changes for current and future employees. And I'll just run through those very quickly, what that accomplishes, because we're simply codifying those recommendations from that resolution. For future employees hired after July 31st, they would become members of the South Dakota retirement system. And now we had some legwork that we had to accomplish before we could get to this point, and I'm pleased to report that the legislature of the state of South Dakota made an amendment, and we were successful at getting a change so that we could meet that deadline. Secondly, we made changes affected for current employees. Those changes included increasing employee contributions 1% a year, 1% in 2014 and 1% in 2015. And another significant change for current employees was that we were going to create a stipend program and remove access to the city's self-insured health plan, which was a significant change. That also required a significant amount of legwork. And I'm pleased to report those changes also required an employee vote, and we were overwhelmingly successful at getting the employees to vote in favor of being part of the solution to these pension changes. The changes that you see before you are pretty comprehensive. We've worked with the City Attorney's Office and the Human Resources Office, with the exception of a couple of house cleaning related changes. Again, these are simply codifying the recommendations from the resolution in July of 2012. And again, as you look at those ordinances, it may seem like there's a significant number of changes. You know, there's an employees retirement system that we need to make a set of changes in the employees retirement system affecting police and general employees. And we have another set of changes affecting the firefighters pension plan to implement those changes. Now, the changes that you're looking at and that we're suggesting for a hearing on May 7th realize significant savings over the next 30 years. The estimated savings tied to these proposals is about $300 million over the next 30 years. On April 2nd, we reviewed the pension ordinance with the Fiscal Committee, and they overwhelmingly voted in favor of this, and we respectfully ask that you set a date of hearing for May 7th. Thank you.
Good job, Bill. Thank you. Would anybody want to set a date of hearing and second reading for Tuesday, May 7th for this item?
So moved, Karski.
Oh, thank you. Councilor Rolfing has made that motion, seconded by Councilor Karski. A roll call vote, please.
Councilmembers Erpenbach?
Yes.
Jamison?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Staggers?
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Thank you very much. It's passed 7-0. Item 28.
Item 28 is a first reading to set a date of hearing and second reading for Tuesday, May 7th, 2013 at 7 o'clock p.m. An ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property at East 41st Street and South Faith Avenue from the RD Residential District to the RD2 Residential District, petition number 2013-0303, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval.
Good evening. I'm Mike Cooper with Planning and Building Services. We have a number of items tonight that were considered by the City Planning Commission at their last regular meeting. This property is located on the south side of East 41st Street, approximately 1/2 mile east of South Dakota Highway 11. The applicant is Brady Hyde with Empire Homes. The size of this area is just over 3 acres. And the developer is proposing to construct 4-unit townhomes on 7 lots that are proposed to be part of this rezoning. The area around it is currently undeveloped, and we have not had any neighborhood concerns expressed because right now there are no neighbors, which is a good thing sometimes.
Councilor Staggers.
Yeah, Mike, not in particular with this request, but are we starting to get more requests for rezoning before we have Shape Sioux Falls go into effect? Or
I would say it's a continuation of just this is the busy development season, and so we're starting to get a lot of interest in new projects.
Council, thank you. Would anybody want to set a date of hearing and second reading for Tuesday, May 7th for this item?
So moved, Erpenbach.
Second, Rolfing.
Councilor Erpenbach's made that motion, seconded by Councilor Rolfing. A roll call vote, please.
Council members Erpenbach?
Yes.
Jamison?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Staggers?
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
That is passed 7-0. Item 29.
Item 29 is a first reading to set a date of hearing and second reading for Tuesday, May 7th, 2013 at 7:00 p.m. An ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property at East 69th Street and future S. Bonson Avenue from the RS2 Residential District to the O Office District, petition number 2013-0301, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval.
This property is located on the north side of East 69th Street, adjacent to where the future Bonson Avenue extension would intersect this area. The applicant is Scott Gilbert with Whispering Woods South, LLC. The property is just under 1.5 acres in size, and the applicant is proposing to develop this into a private indoor gymnastics facility. The surrounding property is still vacant. There is future office zoning adjacent to this as well, and this is another one that we've not received any neighboring questions or concerns.
Move approval, Rolfing.
Councilor Anderson Jr., did you have a question before we move on?
Yes, Mike.
Thank you.
Where's the utilities on this one?
The utilities would be in 69th Street as well as the services that'll be adjoining this area, but the main services would be on 69th Street.
Where are they located now? Because it doesn't look like 69th Street's developed, or is it? Am I wrong there? Or?
Yeah, the services are there. What I can do is provide an exhibit for second reading that would help you see where that's going to be. We'll do that.
Good job, Councilor. Councilor Rolfing, were you still willing to make a motion to approve?
Yes.
Thank you.
Second, Anderson.
Thank you, Councilor Anderson Jr., for that second. A roll call vote, please.
Council members Erpenbach?
Yes.
Jamison?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Staggers?
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
That is passed 7-0. Item 30.
Item 30 is a first reading to set a date of hearing and second reading for Tuesday, May 7th, 2013 at 7:00 p.m. An ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property at 1521 East 5th Street and 511 North Highland Avenue from the RD Residential District to the RA1 Residential District, petition number 2013-0312, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval.
This consists of 2 existing lots that are currently vacant, and this would be at the southwest intersection of East 5th Street and North Highland Avenue. The applicant includes Affordable Housing Solutions as well as Sioux Falls Community Development. This is just under 1/2 acre in size, and the proposal is to construct a 5-unit multifamily development on this property. It would be senior housing. It will be a row house style design The units will be one level side by side with their own individual off-street parking. This is an infill project in the Whittier neighborhood. It's surrounded by single family and a church. We've not had any neighborhood opposition expressed. And in fact, based on neighborhood meeting, the people are pretty excited about having this new constructed in their neighborhood.
Would anybody want to make a motion to set a date of hearing and second reading for Tuesday, May 7th?
So move. Second.
Councilor Anderson Jr. has made that motion, seconded by Councilor Karski. A roll call vote, please.
Council members Erpenbach?
Yes.
Jamison?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Staggers?
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
That is passed 7-0. Item 31.
Item 31 is a first reading to set a date of hearing and second reading for Tuesday, May 7th, 2013 at 7 o'clock p.m. An ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota rezoning property at 600 South Main Avenue from the C2 General Commercial and RA1 Residential District to the O Office District, petition number 2013-0314, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval.
This is at the southeast corner of 14th Street and Main Avenue. This is the location of the First Dakota Title Building. The applicant is John Archer, representing FTD Partners, LLP, and the proposal is to add on to this building as well as additional parking.
Thanks, Mike. Councilor? Yes. Councilor Rolfing?
Mike, so they're going to take the house that was there and raise it? And then the way I understand it, they're going to put a second level on that
And
building?
then add more parking.
And add more parking?
Yes.
Okay. Move approval, Rolfing.
Thank you, Councilor Rolfing.
Second, Karski.
And it has been seconded by Councilor Karski. A roll call vote, please.
Council members Erpenbach?
Yes.
Jamison?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Staggers?
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
7-0. It is passed. Item 32.
Item 32 is deferred from the City Council meeting of Tuesday, April 9th, 2013. A resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement between the City of Sioux Falls and the Overlook Cafe for the management of the Overlook Cafe.
Good evening, City Council and Mayor. Dave Fisher, Assistant Director, Parks and Recreation. The resolution before you tonight will allow us to obtain the services of Micro Management, LLC, which is owned by Rhonda Milstead, to manage the Overlook Cafe. The process we followed to find a vendor was initiated through the Parks and Recreation Board and included forming a vendor selection team, selecting a consultant, developing a request for proposals, and conducting interviews. The vendor selection team consisted of representatives from Parks and Recreation staff, the Parks and Recreation Board, the City Council, the City Finance Office, and the Convention and Visitors Bureau. I also would like to put forward a special thanks to our consultant, Paul Van Bakkeren from the Minerva's Group, who volunteered his time and expertise to help us in the process. And I can tell you that his input was extremely valuable along the way. Some of the bullets of the agreement include that we're proposing it to be a 5-year agreement. The city would receive 10% of gross receipts. The scope of the agreement is to provide a professionally run, family-oriented food service that also offers private rentals and catering events. The city would pay the utilities, and the intent of any use of beer and wine would be for private rentals and to complement the patron's dining experience. Furthermore, alcohol may not be the focus of advertising or specials such as bucket night or 2-for-1 promotions. I'd also like to mention that along these lines, during Rhonda's research through the process of applying for the proper license, it was discovered that there are not only park ordinances, but zoning ordinances and also state laws that deal with having alcohol in Falls Park. How they relate to each other can be somewhat confusing. We sat down with the city attorney's office, and what we had determined is that what we really need to do is draft an ordinance or an amendment to the park ordinance having to do with alcohol in city parks, which has been done by the attorney's office, and bring it forward to you. Just this afternoon, I can tell you that we took that proposed amendment to the Parks and Recreation Board, and they recommended unanimously to approve the ordinance. So you'll be seeing that fairly shortly. Reports. that are required within the agreement to assist our staff and the Parks and Recreation Board with our oversight responsibilities include an annual budget, an operational plan, quarterly financial statements, an annual financial report, a certified audit report on the request of the City of Sioux Falls, and also a marketing plan. In summary, I would say that we feel the process that was implemented by the Parks and Recreation Board was thorough and was successful. The vendor that has been selected already has experience at the Overlook Cafe in that she ran the concession there during this last winter wonderland season. I would also report that the agreement was unanimously recommended for approval by the Parks and Recreation Board on March 26, 2013. Approval of this resolution tonight will allow for reopening of the cafe by mid-May. Now I'd just like to introduce Rhonda Milstead for just a few comments.
Thanks, David. Welcome, Rhonda.
I have to tell you, I'm starting to feel like a child on Christmas Eve, waiting for the sun to come up. It's not about opening a gift, but I'm very anxious and excited about greeting and meeting and serving your public, our public. Just through word of mouth, I've gotten calls from people that are anxious to have celebrations at the cafe. And that wonderful article that was in the paper on Sunday has generated a lot of interest and anticipation by the public. And congratulations as to when this is going to open, because just to go down there and have an ice cream cone, to include chocolate, Councilman Jameson, and I'm sorry I can't do the pork chop, Councilman Rothling, but we can certainly do pulled pork. Anyway, we're just anxious to get going. I'm a bundle of energy, and I think that the public is wanting to see this happen, and I just want to make this work for you as well as for myself. I think it's a wonderful opportunity, that cafe, and I think it's a community opportunity, and that's what I truly want it to be. So thank you.
Rhonda, thank you as well. This item was deferred to provide an opportunity to have some folks speak on this item. We had a major snowstorm last week, and we got a request, and that request was certainly accepted. So, Cheryl, would you mind coming forward, please, and speaking as you wish?
Good evening. My name is Cheryl Rath. I am here this evening to speak to item 32 on the agenda, but first I would like to say thank you. My neighborhood was one of the hardest hit areas in our city last week. It was a long, exhausting days of no electricity, no heat, the sound of falling trees, cracking tree limbs, exploding transformers, and downed power lines. Our city was put to the test, and I would like to personally thank you for your response and the response of all city employees. Item 32, management agreement for the Overlook Cafe at Falls Park. Years ago, city leaders made the decision to invest millions of dollars in the rehabilitation of Falls Park. The area had endured decades of abuse and misuse. I believe that current park policies were developed to address some of the issues that created the undesirable area that Falls Park had become. This is taken directly from the city's website, siouxfalls.org. Park use information. Consumption of malt beverages, including beer, is allowed in non-glass containers in all parks except the following. Alcohol is prohibited at Arrowhead, Falls, Faywick, Heritage, Kenny Anderson, Lyon, McKinnon, Pasley, Tomar, Tuthill, Veterans Memorial, and Whittier Parks. No alcohol other than malt beverage is allowed in any park. Falls Park, amenities, accessible restrooms, accessible picnic shelters with electrical, shelter pavilion, no alcohol allowed. Bike trail access point, historic displays, visitor center, restaurant, observation tower, sculptures. While daylight savings time is in effect, Falls Park shall remain open between 5 a.m. and 12 midnight. No person shall consume any alcohol beverages in Falls Park, Faywick Park, or any park property located adjacent to and within 500 feet of the Big Sioux River between Falls Park Drive south to the Cliff Avenue Bridge, located between 12th Street and 14th Street, except upon application meeting the requirements of SD CL 35-4-11.4 and approval by the City Council. Please note that SD CL 35-4-11.4 has been repealed. This is the end of the information that was taken from the city's website. The following are my personal comments. During the current RFP process, 4 vendors expressed interest. 1 submitted a proposal that is before you this evening. Included in that management agreement for the Overlook Cafe, Article A, is the following clause. Number 7, manager agrees that the use of beer and wine is intended for private rentals, caterings, and to complement park patrons' dining experience. Alcohol may not be the focus of advertising or offered as a special, such as bucket night or 2-for-1 promotion. The Park Board's justification for this change is to address the limiting factors to success: acoustics, beer, wine availability, hours of operation, summer and winter. This management agreement is a proposal that reflects a major shift in policy regarding our city's namesake, the crown jewel of our nationally recognized park system and one of our state's major tourist attractions. The decision that was made years ago to prohibit the consumption of alcohol in Falls Park helped reverse decades of bad policy regarding the use of this property that is owned and maintained by Sioux Falls taxpayers. In addition, recent tragic events at the park have prompted city officials to call for the study of safety in the park. Why would you now be considering the reintroduction of the use of alcohol into Falls Park? I urge you not to approve this agreement as proposed.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else who wanted to speak on this particular item? Very good. Council? Yes, Councilor Staggers?
Yes, Dave, the request for a proposal to manage the Falls Cafe, did it have in there that alcoholic beverages would be served, or could be served? Or in other words, where did this come from? Did Rhonda put that in her proposal, or was it already in the RFP?
No, it was something that I believe was in the RFP as something that the city would consider on a limited basis.
Okay. Did you?
And again, that was as a result of not only our consultant, but also the vendor selection team that identified that as one of the things we should try to address if we can in order to allow us to get a viable, longer-term vendor at the cafe.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I assumed the purpose of this was. But at the same time, we've heard Cheryl read the restrictions that we have. And so you went ahead and had an RFP despite all these restrictions?
Yeah, we, at the time that we wrote the RFP, we believed that it was totally within due process to issue a regular beer and wine license. It was only recently, when Rhonda went to look into it, that we saw that there's some confusion in that. You can tell a little bit of confusion even by what Cheryl had read. There's some confusion in that there are zoning ordinances, park ordinances, and also state laws that are all cross-referenced there. And so what we need to do is go back and amend the ordinance to do that. That has no bearing on the agreement. Whether beer and wine is sold or not, that's simply a menu item. And while we give the flexibility to be able to serve beer and wine, it's also stated in the contract where the vendor has to be able to secure the necessary licenses and permits to manage the cafe. So if she's not able to do that because of ordinance or whatever other reason there is, then it won't happen.
So Rhonda was not aware of all this confusion either. Yeah.
No.
Councilor Bach, did you have go right ahead.
Well, that was what I was going to ask. It's about how we make this work. But if she still has to get licenses anyway, and if we're looking at, I guess my question was, what is the amendment to the ordinance? What is it that we're going to do? And does it preclude us from passing this resolution tonight? But I think you answered that. We can pass this. She can't, even if she opened tomorrow, she can't serve beer or wine or anything until she has the license.
Yeah, let Rhonda speak for herself, I guess, but Rhonda understands the situation, and whether beer and wine is allowed or not, she's anxious to get the cafe back open, and she believes it has a lot to offer, and she's ready to go.
Councilor Jameson.
Thank you, Dave. That's partly where I was headed. If Rhonda could maybe answer a question about just how big a deal the beer and wine sales are to you, and do you have projected into your success because of those?
Well, I think that they are part of the success. However, that all came up because of the process, the selection committee, the consultant's recommendation, and you even take your public who is wanting to be there. The fact that the public wants to be able to enjoy a beer with their meal or a glass of wine on the deck is something that's being asked for. And so putting that into my menu was a way to serve that. But I mean, I realize that we have other things to do to get there. And having the cafe open doesn't really have something to do with beer and wine at this point at all. Does that answer your question? And I guess the other thing I want to mention too, I mean, as part of that proposal, there had to be some serious management considerations if beer and wine is ever served in the cafe. And that I take very seriously. You know, as far as coming up with a plan that people maintain that drinking within the cafe and that it is meant to be something that complements their meal and nothing more. That's very important. I mean, I appreciate the park system and what we have down there, and I don't want it to go anywhere else. I'm looking to operate a cafe that is family friendly, and that the public is feels warm and invited in that place. So,
Councilor Rolfing.
Yes, Dave. During your consultation with Paul Van Bonkert, is he the one that brought up the beer and wine?
He was.
Okay.
Well, we simply described to Paul what our problem has been. And part of our problem has basically been that we've had 3 vendors since the cafe has been open in the last 8 years. And what we're looking for is, you know, what do we need to do in order to entice a good, long-term, viable vendor? And then we described to him the conditions that we've had on previous vendors, which one of them was the beer and wine sales. And he brought that up as, you might want to address that.
You want to address it and make that part of the RFD, and so that, see, I think what Paul is telling you is that the beer and wine is tipper on this thing that will make somebody stay there. And I believe that's the profit margin right down there. And this is going to be needed, Rhonda. The beer and wine license is going to be something that's going to be needed. And for you to sign a 5-year deal and hope to make it, you're going to be just right there all the time, where with the beer and wine, you're going to be okay. And it's kind of like having the ability to cook that steak like I was talking about, and not being able to do that. So I think it's ultimately important that this happen, if that's the way the council feels, to have that beer and wine license there. If we agree that that's something that's appropriate for that wine, or for that restaurant and that venue, for this thing to go. I'm just stating my opinion, and I believe Paul would back that up.
Councilor Aguilar.
Can we clarify? The beer and wine is only at special events, right? Or is it a regular part of the menu?
It would be a regular part of the menu, and it would also be allowed for private rentals. However, it would only be allowed as a complement to the dining experience. In other words, if someone comes in and just wants to continually order beer, Rhonda has every right not to allow that.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Bach.
Then I kind of have a legal question. When we get to the point where we're approving her beer and wine license, which is down the road yet, we can put restrictions on it so that glass of wine doesn't leave the deck, right? We can put rules like that on it. Could I ask the attorney that?
David?
Thank you, Mayor. I've actually looked at the draft proposed ordinance, and I tweaked it myself so that any beer and wine would be confined to the area itself and could not go off that premises. That's not an unusual. What this contract does is it allows the possibilities, and it has some restrictions, if this body decides to amend an ordinance to allow that in the first place. And we're just having it, kind of putting it, I mean, some people say, well, you're putting the cart before the horse, but actually we're making this agreement now so that if this body decides later to allow that limited alcohol use, we've got restrictions in place with the contract. We don't have to go back an amendment. We don't have to give some new consideration in order to get a new amendment to the contract. So it's just, and Rhonda's aware of all this, so.
Thank you, David. Councilor Bach.
Well, I think it's just important for us and for the citizens to understand that we're as protective of the park as anyone else is, and that I think that Rhonda's expressing her concerns about having beer and wine there because, as Ms. Rath said, the river is right there. I mean, it's one thing to carry a glass of wine around the park, which we're not going to allow, but if a person gets to a point of intoxication and walks out onto the bridge or near the river, we're creating potential hazards, and that puts that vendor in danger, liabilities. So I don't think that Rhonda's going to take unusual or, dangerous actions regarding this, and I think we're going to be really careful when it comes to approving those beer and wine licenses. I think this is an important thing to have happen. I think that cafe needs to open, and that we need to adopt this.
The other thing I might just point out, if I could, is that within the agreement, there's also a requirement that there be an alcohol management plan if the license is approved. That would involve the police department that would be involved with approval of that alcohol management plan. And so they'll be representing the safety of folks that are in the park as well.
Councilor Bach, would you be willing to make a motion to approve?
I would make that motion. Thank you.
Is there a second?
Second, Karski.
Seconded by Councilor Karski. Councilor Rolfing?
This may be out of order, but I would like to ask, see if I see that Cheryl would like to make another comment, and as she was one that asked to be part of this, I would ask you to let her make a short comment at this point.
Is that in order, David? Ms. Rath.
Thank you, Councilman Rolfing.
Cheryl Rath. This is a 5-year decision that really reverses the policy about the consumption of alcohol in that park. I think it's a huge decision. Currently, alcohol is prohibited in that park, and you are reversing that decision. It's not just about profitability. And I know they've looked at this, but does that even necessarily have to be a cafe? There could be other uses for that building. So I think this decision is much more about the policy of the consumption of alcohol in that park. And I was at the park board meeting at 4 o'clock today and listened to the discussion about this. And already there is discussion amongst the board and with Rhonda to move outside of the building to the south and to use that area as an extension of the cafe. That means that the alcohol would be outside of the building, to the south of the building, outside. That was the discussion that went on this afternoon at the park board meeting.
Cheryl, thank you. Councilor Anderson, Jr.
Mr. Fisher? So right now, as far as this deferred action, if we approve this contract, there can be no alcohol served in the Overlook Cafe until the city brings us that amendment. Is that correct?
That's correct. The whole question of whether or not we can sell alcohol there will be part and parcel to the proposed amendment that you will see in the not too distant future.
There has been a motion. It has been seconded. Councilor Jamieson.
I just wanted to add that that's a good clarification that the big heavy action will come later on the decision. I certainly am taking great pause on the idea of adding alcohol back to Falls Park. All the people, all the kids who go through there, and all the kids who would likely go there for an ice cream cone, big kids like myself, and just the idea of the deck out there. You know, I could imagine the excitement of a bunch of people out there and having alcoholic beverages could be a nice change of venue and provide somebody success. But I think there's a bigger deal. I think it's about cooking the food and their ability to do that and to keep food. I've been to several parties there and had one-day liquor licenses available, and we've had great times. I'm just a little. Well, I'm very concerned about reintroducing alcohol back into that park. I haven't heard of anybody complaining to me about alcohol in the park recently. It's been great at that way. So
thank you, Councilor Jameson, appreciate it. The bulk of the dialogue tonight has been about alcohol, and this is about a contract. It's been, and we agree that that topic is going to come up at a future date. With respect to the council, trying to stay on topic. There has been, does anybody want to talk about the contract? Very good. A roll call vote, please.
Mr. Mayor, could I make just one quick comment before we vote? And that is, with some trepidation, I am going to vote for this. The trepidation I have, though, is that this is supposed to be a family restaurant, and you're having kids coming in, and there are people drinking, you know, beer and wine. That's the main thing that kind of...
A roll call vote, please.
So thank you very much for allowing me to do that.
Councilmember Zerpenbach?
Yes.
Jamison?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Staggers?
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
That is passed 7-0. Item 33.
Item 33 is a resolution of the City of Sioux Falls approving the preliminary plan of Rejoice Lutheran Church addition.
This property is located on West 26th Street and South Katy Avenue, which is west of Marion Road. The applicant is the Evangelical Lutheran Church. The parcel is about 15 acres in size. And if we recall, at the time we approved the annexation, we discussed that the plans for the property would be to retain about 5 acres for a potential future church site, and the balance would be developed into residential lots. So this preliminary plan is showing that, including approximately 40 residential lots that would be considered as part of this future development area. And this has been recommended for approval by the Planning Commission.
Would anybody like to speak to this item? Very good. Council, any comments or motions?
Move approval, Rolfing.
Second, Karski.
Councilor Rolfing, thank you, and it has been seconded by Councilor Karski. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmembers Erpenbach?
Yes.
Jamison?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Staggers?
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
That is passed 7-0. Item 34.
Item 34 is a resolution including certain contiguous territory within the corporate limits of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Annexation 2013-0306 West 41st Street between South Klein Avenue and South Ellis Road.
This property is located on the south side of West 41st Street between Klein Avenue and Ellis Road. The owner and applicant is the City of Sioux Falls. It's about 2.5 acres total area, consisting of 5 residential lots. There are 3 vacant structures on this property. This is part of our West 41st Street reconstruction project that's in our capital program for 2014. As we've gone through some preliminary engineering design, there's going to be a need for some stormwater detention. So real estate and public works have been working on identifying locations where stormwater detention facilities could be located. And this property has been acquired for the city, by the city for that purpose. It will be for storm drainage project as part of the 41st Street construction, again, earmarked for next year.
Thanks, Mike. Council, any comments? Councilor Karski, sorry.
Mike, are we going to have to annex any more of the property along there to widen that street?
Not to widen the street, but we are currently working with the Prairie Meadows subdivision in anticipation of getting all or most of that into the city limits eventually. But right now we have the right of way. We might need some construction easements, but this is what has been identified so far that we need to move forward with the street.
And Prairie Meadows is the stuff to the property to the south of there that's in the Wayne Township?
Yes, it's to the south and to the east of this subject property tonight.
Councilor Anderson, Jr.
Mike, I am going to ask again, you said that we have already purchased all 5 of those lots?
Yes.
We're completely done?
Yes.
Is this online, or is this something that can be sent to it by an email, these photos?
Sure, we can forward those to you.
I appreciate it.
Yep.
Thank you.
Would anybody want to make a motion to approve?
Move to approve, Karski.
Second, Anderson.
Councilor Karski's made a motion to approve this item, seconded by Councilor Anderson, Jr. If no further discussion, a roll call vote, please.
Councilmembers Erpenbach?
Yes.
Jamison?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Staggers?
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
That is passed 7-0. Item 35.
Item 35 is a resolution advising and giving consent to the appointment of members to certain citizen boards, those being for the Board of Health, Rick Kiley, for the Board of Health Falls Community Health Center Governing Board, Arlene Olson, and for the Solid Waste Planning Board, Nancy Korkow.
Council.
Move for approval, Anderson.
Second, Aguilar.
Councilor Anderson, Jr. has made a motion to approve this item, seconded by Councilor Aguilar. A roll call vote, please.
Councilmembers Erpenbach?
Yes.
Jamison?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Staggers?
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Thank you. Council, I failed to recognize, there looks like there's a group of students in the audience. They certainly look like it, and you've been very patient. Where are you folks from? And what are you studying, sir?
History after 1877.
Very good. If we could pan into the audience, please, with the camera. Some students here from the University of Sioux Falls, and they are studying government history. I'm sorry? And citizenship?
Since 1877.
Oh, since 1877. Okay. Very good. Well, a hearty welcome to you, and thanks for your patience tonight. Council, let's give them a round of applause. And we'd encourage all of you to run for public service someday. We need you. Councilor Anderson, Jr., did you have a comment?
Yes, Mayor. I think you've heard it a few times, but I don't think it's been said enough. For yourself, the administration, and the employees of Sioux Falls, thank you. You guys they've done a beautiful job, and I'm also on the advisory board for XL Energy, and I have to give them kudos too to bringing all this equipment and staff in here to help take care of Sioux Falls.
Thank you, Counselor. I'll relay that message to the people. Thank you. There's been a motion to adjourn, and it has been seconded by Counselor Urbanbach. A roll call. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This meeting is adjourned. We do have a great city, Sioux Falls. Thank you so much. Make it a great night.